Dear as the walls still breathe, the tragedy of the Manila Film Center. There are buildings that hold history, and then there are buildings that hold the dead. In the heart of Pasay, Philippines, stands a brutalist monolith of concrete and ambition. It is a structure born of vanity, built on a foundation of unimaginable suffering. To look at the Manila Film Center today is to look at a tomb. It is a place where the walls do not just have ears, they have voices, they have hands, and they have memories that refuse to be silenced. This is not a ghost story born of folklore or ancient myth. This is a horror story forged in the modern era, documented in the blood and bone of the men who built it. It is a story of power, of pride, and of a 9-hour silence that sealed the fate of over 100 souls. It is a testament to what happens when human life is deemed less valuable than a deadline, and when the dead are paved over in the name of progress. The year was 1981. The Philippines was under the iron grip of the Marcos regime. First Lady Imelda Marcos, driven by what many called an Edifice complex, envisioned a grand cultural renaissance for Manila. She wanted to transform the city into the Cannes of Asia, a glittering hub of international cinema that would draw the world's biggest stars and directors. To do this, she needed a palace of cinema, a structure so magnificent, so imposing, that it would dazzle the international elite and project an image of a prosperous, modern Philippines. She ordered the construction of the Manila Film Center. It was to be the crown jewel of the first Manila International Film Festival, scheduled for January 18, 1982. The design was inspired by the Parthenon, a massive, imposing structure of concrete and steel that would stand as a monument to the regime's cultural ambitions. There was only one problem: the timeline. A building of this magnitude would normally take years to complete. The sheer scale of the architecture, the intricate details required for world-class auditoriums, the massive foundation needed to support the Brutalist design, all of it demanded careful planning and meticulous execution. But Imelda Marcos demanded it be finished in months. The project was put on a breakneck, impossible schedule. Thousands of laborers were brought in from the provinces, desperate men looking for work to feed their families. They were thrust into a grueling, non-stop operation. The site operated 24 hours a day, divided into 3 exhausting shifts. It was a chaotic symphony of steel, sweat, and wet cement. Floodlights illuminated the night sky, casting long, eerie shadows over the skeletal frame of the building as it rose from the reclaimed land near Manila Bay. Safety protocols were ignored. The structural integrity of the scaffolding was compromised by the sheer speed of the work. There was no time to wait for the concrete to cure properly before adding the next layer. Instead, the cement was mixed with special quick-drying agents so that the next level could be poured almost immediately. The workers were pushed to their absolute limits, exhausted, sleep-deprived, and operating in incredibly dangerous conditions. It was a recipe for disaster. And at 3 a.m. on November 17, 1981, the inevitable happened. The scaffolding on the upper floors gave way. The collapse was catastrophic. Dozens of workers, some reports say as many as 169 men, plunged into the darkness below. But they did not hit solid ground. They fell into the freshly poured, quick-drying cement of the building's foundation. Imagine the horror of that moment. Plunging through the air in the dead of night, surrounded by falling steel, wooden planks and debris, only to land in a thick, viscous trap. The cement was designed to harden rapidly, a chemical reaction that generated intense heat. As the men struggled, the mixture clung to them, pulling them deeper Some were impaled by jagged rebar that jutted out from the unfinished pillars. Others were crushed by the falling scaffolding, their bones snapping under the weight of the steel. But many, too many, were simply trapped, sinking into the gray sludge. The wet concrete filled their mouths and noses as they screamed for help. The air was squeezed from their lungs as the cement began to set around their chests, a slow, agonizing constriction that offered no escape. In any normal circumstance, this would be the moment the sirens wailed. The moment rescue crews rushed in with heavy equipment, cranes and jackhammers to pull the survivors from the wreckage. It would be a moment of frantic, desperate action to save as many lives as possible. But this was not a normal circumstance. This was a project of the First Lady, and bad press was not an option. The regime could not afford the embarrassment of a major disaster just months before the International Film Festival. What followed is known as the 9-hour silence. According to numerous accounts from those who were there, the Marcos administration immediately imposed a strict media blackout. The gates of the construction site were locked and heavily guarded. Police and military security forces formed a tight perimeter around the area, their rifles at the ready. When ambulances, fire trucks, and rescue workers finally arrived, their sirens blaring in the pre-dawn darkness, they were stopped at the gates. They were turned away. They were explicitly ordered not to enter the site. For 9 agonizing hours, the men trapped in the cement were left to their fate. Those who were on the site that night, the workers who had survived the collapse, whispered of the horrors they witnessed. They spoke of men buried up to their waists, their arms reaching out, begging for help that would never come. They spoke of the sound of the cement hardening, a slow, creeping death that crushed the life out of the workers inch by inch. They heard the frantic prayers, the cries for mothers and wives, the desperate gasps for air as the concrete solidified around their rib cages. Some workers tried to pull their friends out, but the quick-drying cement was too strong. It was like trying to pull a man from solid rock. The heat from the curing concrete burned their skin, adding to the unimaginable agony. And all the while, the security forces stood outside the gates, ensuring that no one from the outside world knew what was happening. By the time the gates were finally opened to the rescue crews, it was too late. The quick-drying cement had done its job. It had turned into solid rock. The men were entombed. The rescue effort, when it finally began, was a gruesome, impossible task. Jackhammers and drills were brought in, but the concrete was too hard and the bodies were too deeply embedded. The vibrations from the drills only threatened to destabilize the rest of the structure. Some reports claim that a few bodies were recovered, mangled and broken, but many were hopelessly trapped. And then came the order that would curse the Manila Film Center forever. With the film festival looming just 2 months away, the project supervisor, Betty Benitez, allegedly made a chilling decision. The timeline could not be compromised. The international guests were already booking their flights. The First Lady's vision had to be realized, no matter the cost. The construction had to continue. They did not extract the remaining bodies. They simply poured more cement over them. The workers were paved over. Their bodies became part of the foundation, part of the walls, part of the very structure of the Manila Film Center. The building was finished on time. The red carpet was rolled out. The international elite arrived, actors, directors, and politicians from around the world, sipping champagne and watching films in a grand auditorium, completely unaware that they were sitting atop a mass grave. But the dead do not rest easily when they are buried alive. Almost immediately, the Manila Film Center became a place of profound supernatural terror. The workers who finished the building, the ones who had to lay the carpets and install the seats over the entombed bodies of their colleagues, reported hearing disembodied voices echoing through the empty halls. They heard the distinct sound of weeping, of men begging for water, of desperate scratching against the concrete walls. When the building finally opened, the haunting escalated. Visitors and staff reported sudden, inexplicable drops in temperature, cold spots that seemed to hover in the grand lobby and the lower levels. The air inside the center always felt heavy, thick with an unseen sorrow that pressed down on the chest. One of the most persistent and terrifying phenomena involves the walls themselves. Maintenance workers and security guards who patrolled the building at night have reported seeing a dark, viscous liquid seeping from the concrete in the lower levels. Some say it looks like dirty water. Others say it looks unmistakably like blood. When they wipe it away, it returns, bleeding through the pores of the stone as if the building itself is wounded, as if the concrete cannot contain the trauma trapped within it. But the visual apparitions are far worse. People have reported seeing the spectral figures of men in construction gear, their clothes torn and covered in grey dust, their bodies mangled, their faces twisted in agony. They appear in the dimly lit corridors, standing silently in the shadows, only to vanish when approached. Some guards have quit after a single night shift, terrified by the sight of half-formed figures emerging from the pillars. In the main auditorium, where the grand film screenings were held, patrons have felt cold hands grabbing their ankles from beneath the seats. They have heard the sound of heavy breathing right next to their ears, even when they are completely alone in the theater. The projectionists have reported seeing shadowy figures sitting in the back rows, watching the empty screen long after the building has closed. And then there are the arms. Urban explorers and paranormal investigators who have dared to enter the abandoned sections of the building have reported a phenomenon that defies logic and chills the blood. They claim to have seen human arms, pale, desperate, and spectral, reaching out from the solid concrete walls, grasping at the air before slowly sinking back into the stone. It is a visual echo of the workers' final moments, a terrifying replay of their desperate pleas for help. The tragedy of the Manila Film Center did not end with the workers. The curse, it seems, followed those who were responsible for the cover-up and the decision to pave over the dead. Betty Benitez, the project supervisor, who allegedly gave the order to pour the cement over the trapped men, met a horrific end. Just months after the accident, she was killed in a freak car crash. She was driving to the resort city of Tagaytay when her vehicle suddenly veered off the road and smashed into a tree. According to the legend that quickly spread through Manila, the widows of the entombed workers had placed a hex upon her, a curse born of their unimaginable grief and rage. They had prayed for her to suffer as their husbands had suffered. Whether it was a supernatural curse or mere coincidence, her violent death only cemented the building's dark reputation. In the late 1990s, a group of spirit questers, paranormal communicators, and psychics were allowed into the Manila Film Center. Their goal was to make contact with the trapped souls, to understand their pain, and to offer them some measure of peace. What they experienced inside was overwhelming. The questers reported that the building was saturated with trapped energy. They didn't just sense one or two spirits. They felt a multitude. The entities were confused, angry, and in immense pain. Through their mediums, the spirits communicated their final moments, the crushing weight of the cement, the burning sensation in their lungs as the chemicals reacted, the absolute, suffocating darkness. The most heartbreaking revelation from the spirit questers was that many of the entities did not know they were dead. They were trapped in a continuous loop of their final hours. They were still waiting to be rescued. They were still wondering why the sirens never came, why the gates were locked, why they were abandoned in the dark.
Why did they leave us?
Despite attempts to cleanse the building, to hold masses and offer prayers for the dead, the Manila Film Center remains a monument to tragedy. Over the decades, it has suffered from neglect, earthquakes, and fires. It stands today, partially abandoned, its brutalist facade stained by time, pollution, and the inescapable weight of its history. It is a building that the city tries to ignore but cannot erase. It is a constant, looming reminder of the dark days of the dictatorship, a physical manifestation of the regime's disregard for human life. When you stand outside the Manila Film Center at night, the air from Manila Bay blows across the wide concrete steps. It is a lonely, desolate place. But if you press your ear to the walls of the lower levels, you won't just hear the wind off the water. You will hear the silence of those 9 hours. You will hear the weight of the stone pressing down on the bones of the forgotten. And if you listen closely enough, if you dare to stay long enough in the dark, you will hear the walls breathing. Because the men inside never truly left. They are still there, holding up the floors, trapped in the dark, waiting for a rescue that will never come. The story of the Manila Film Center is a chilling reminder that some horrors are not born of the supernatural, but of human ambition and cruelty. The ghosts that haunt its halls are not malevolent demons. They are the victims of a system that valued a building over their lives. They are the echoes of a tragedy that was swept under the rug, buried in cement, and forgotten by those in power. But the walls remember. The walls still breathe. And as long as the Manila Film Center stands, the voices of the entombed will continue to whisper in the dark, demanding to be heard, demanding to be remembered. The legacy of the Manila Film Center is a complex tapestry of political ambition, architectural grandeur, and profound human tragedy. It serves as a stark warning about the dangers of unchecked power and the devastating consequences of prioritizing prestige over people. The building itself, with its imposing brutalist design, stands as a silent witness to the events of November 17th, 1981. It is a physical embodiment of the phrase Edifice complex, a term coined to describe the Marcos regime's obsession with constructing monumental buildings as a display of power and progress. However, the true cost of this progress was paid in blood and bone. The workers who perished in the collapse were not just statistics. They were fathers, sons, brothers, and husbands. They were ordinary men who sought only to earn a living and support their families. Their lives were cut short in a horrific and entirely preventable accident, their bodies entombed in the very structure they were building. The decision to continue construction, to pave over the dead rather than halt the project and recover the bodies, is a chilling testament to the callousness of those in charge. The subsequent haunting of the Manila Film Center is a reflection of this unresolved trauma. The reports of paranormal activity, the disembodied voices, the spectral figures, the bleeding walls, are not merely ghost stories. They are manifestations of a collective grief and a demand for justice. The spirits of the entombed workers are said to be restless, trapped in a state of perpetual agony and confusion. They are a constant reminder of the tragedy that occurred, a haunting presence that refuses to be ignored or forgotten. The story of the Manila Film Center also highlights the power of memory and the importance of acknowledging the past. For years, the Marcos regime attempted to suppress the truth about the accident, imposing a media blackout and silencing those who spoke out. But the truth could not be buried forever. The stories of the workers, the accounts of the survivors, and the persistent rumors of paranormal activity kept the memory of the tragedy alive. Today, the Manila Film Center is widely recognized as a site of historical significance, a place where the dark legacy of the dictatorship is laid bare. As we reflect on the tragedy of the Manila Film Center, we are reminded of the need for accountability and the importance of valuing human life above all else. The building stands as a solemn memorial to the workers who perished, a stark reminder of the cost of ambition and the enduring power of memory. The walls may still breathe, but they also speak, telling a story of suffering, injustice, and the indomitable spirit of those who refuse to be forgotten. The tragedy of the Manila Film Center is not just a story of a building collapse. It is a profound commentary on the human condition and the lengths to which those in power will go to maintain their facade of invincibility. The Marcos regime, with its insatiable appetite for grandeur and international recognition, created an environment where the lives of ordinary workers were deemed expendable. The rush to complete the project, the blatant disregard for safety protocols, and the subsequent cover-up all point to a systemic failure of empathy and responsibility. The workers who lost their lives were the unsung heroes of the regime's architectural ambitions. They were the ones who toiled day and night, pouring the concrete, erecting the steel, and laying the foundation for a building that was meant to symbolize the nation's progress. Yet when disaster struck, they were abandoned. Their cries for help were ignored, their bodies left to become part of the very structure they were building. This ultimate act of betrayal is what makes the story of the Manila Film Center so deeply unsettling. The paranormal phenomena reported at the site are often interpreted as the restless spirits of these betrayed workers, seeking the justice and recognition they were denied in life. The bleeding walls, the disembodied voices, and the spectral apparitions serve as a constant, chilling reminder of the tragedy. They are the building's way of refusing to let the past be forgotten. For those who believe in the supernatural, the Manila Film Center is a place where the veil between the living and the dead is terrifyingly thin, a place where the echoes of the past continue to reverberate in the present. Even for skeptics, the building holds a palpable sense of sorrow and unease. The sheer weight of its history, the knowledge of what transpired within its walls, is enough to send shivers down the spine of anyone who visits. It stands as a dark monument, a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the devastating consequences of prioritizing prestige over human life. The Manila Film Center is a stark reminder that true progress cannot be built on a foundation of suffering and deceit. As time goes on, the physical structure of the Manila Film Center may continue to deteriorate, but its legacy will endure. It will remain a symbol of the dark days of the dictatorship, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, and a solemn memorial to the workers who perished. The story of the Manila Film Center is a vital part of the nation's history, a narrative that must be preserved and retold to ensure that such a tragedy never happens again. The walls may still breathe, but it is up to the living to ensure that the voices of the entombed are finally heard and their memories honored.